the session is performance insight. Actually, I want to present this session because I have thought that there are many more topic are there, and every topics has tons of materials are there in if you search on YouTube or if you search on Google. But I have found that there are few more important things that are very important for the performance, and these things are not addressed very much. So I have taken this session and named it Performance Insight. Actually, I wanted to start it from the SQL Server installation to SQL Server management. So if we go through this session, first of all, I wanted to I want to thanks SQL Server that Pass has given us an opportunity to grow a community in Bangladesh, and we are working on it. And many more speakers, many more audience has come and join in these sessions. And from last 5 years, we are arranging SQL Server session here in Bangladesh. And I think it will be great for the audience to share knowledge and get knowledge, and it will be also a network among us, the professionals. What do you think?
Yes, obviously, this is the actually without community, this pandemic situation, we are not facing each other, but this community activity is actually gathering everyone in a single call. So this is a really great opportunity to sharing the knowledge with others, and without actually wasting any time and facing this pandemic situation. So we are actually utilizing this.
Right. It's actually, I have thought that it's a great opportunity that our community may not have the ability to bring a foreign speaker from USA to Bangladesh, but in the pandemic situation, they are online and they has input their valuable ideas, valuable experience to us. I think
Exactly.
it's a great
So
matter for us as well.
yeah, in my from my previous experience, we are working in a very long time, but I believe this pandemic situation is actually opening the door to communicating every person from a different corner, as well as this is the first time maybe we organizing and inviting a speaker from outside for this events. So this is a big opportunity. Yeah.
Actually, this is a big opportunity in this worst situation.
Yeah, yeah. True. It's
That's
very
it.
true.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thanks our past global sponsors, and the past global sponsor is Microsoft Azure, Dell Technology, Global Cloud, and many more other organization, and they are continuously sponsoring to run the pass. Actually, the pass is an organization who is working voluntarily globally, and they are working from Chicago, USA. So again, we are thankful for sponsoring, and it is opportunity for the professional to grow their community activities. Uh, so first of all, Nakib, that I wanted to say that I wanted to start my session from configuration. Actually, what is the
Sure.
really I wanted to mean that before starting, before installation of SQL Server, we need to configure some hardware perspective also. That hardware perspective means BIOS setup actually. Say BIOS power management features and networking features, IO features, disk features. These are the features that will be need to be more effectively configurable, so that whenever the application or database is running on the system, it will be properly, effectively work. So before going towards my presentation, I want to introduce myself with the audience. I am Ahsan Kabir, and I am running the local past chapter. And actually, I am not running it. I am actually think I am a moderator, and you all guys are the key people who actually run the organization. Past local chapter tech forum. Actually, in my context, I am working currently on data and cloud platform, and actually, our environment. We are in our environment. We manage DevOps concept for development and implementation as well as. And I like to and I love to work on community, and it will be a great. It will not a it don't have any monetary value, but it's a great opportunity for introduce with the new faces and getting better experience, and it will be helpful for me to know many more
Yeah, actually,
young
from my
people and
concept, yeah,
experienced
obviously,
professionals.
this
And before
community work actually, community work is opening the door to generate actually more connection. So we are knowing each other from different corner of the world. So this is very very good opportunity.
actually earlier we communicating between the country, but now in a pandemic situation, an opportunity has created to introduce and grow our network between the globe.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
so I'm going to first of all I want to focus on the thing that power management. Actually, the power management feature is an important thing whenever you are going to set up a server and that will run a larger system. Actually, we don't care. Most of the cases we don't care about these things, but I love to share it because if we are not properly configure the BIOS power management feature, that will make some problematic issue in the context of performance. Actually, why these things are happen? So that I have written here to ensure that it is firing on the all cylinders, which in turn will allow the hypervisor to allocate the abstract resource. Actually, if we are not properly, the power management feature should be high performance. In some context, if it is set default low or many other option, then it will not properly work. So if we run a database server, then we wanted to set the power feature as high performance, so it will then give us the proper processor capacity. Second thing that I want to address is we need to do something and we need not to do something. Actually, what I want to mean that in some context, when we are going to install software, then we are not care about the what are the features that we need in our current system. Say we are going to install all the features and all the services. So when these things are happening, then all maybe we are not using SQL Server integration service. Maybe we are not using SQL Server analysis service. But if we enable those service, and this service will consume the resource, and in that context, this resource consumption will uh, impact on the system because they are always running, and maybe it will deteriorate the performance of the SQL Server database engine. And another thing we need to know that always we try to update the SQL Server patches and SQL Server Windows Service Package so that always we can keep our system up to date. What do you think, Nakib?
Yeah, obviously. So, as per our previous presenter, Andy also shared the same thing. So, sometimes we are doing or querying different types of information, and for doing that, we have to make sure our all feature is up to date or patch update is very recent.
Right.
I think it's a very
Actually,
good thing.
I have seen in my career that in most of the cases, whenever we are going to install first time, then we are care about the service pack and patches. But in periodic, gradually, maybe 1 or 2 year later,
Mhm.
not care about the service pack, we are not care about the patches. So in that context, many obstacle has to face. Do you have any experience
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, I already have an experience. The thing is actually when there is actually I'm not showing seeing the I'm not going to share the name of the customer. So the thing is they're using their SQL server in 2012 R2, but their application is using for another services and build also a .NET Core. But when they try to connect their another application from for their best uses, but thing is there was some actually error happening for their database table. So what I found there is a version problem was happened for connecting an application.
Right.
So that time I suggest him to just make sure whatever you are using, you may use it 12 or 16 or 19 whatever, but just make sure that for that version that patch update is also is up to date.
Right. Thank you for your suggestion, and I think it's a good suggestion for the audience also. In their context, they will careful about the things. Uh, Now the things I wanted to recommend everyone that if we are using different instance, and different instance has different type of database, so we wanted to arrange those database. Say we say data and log file need to be arranged in a location, so that it easily identify, or whenever we are taking backup, or if we are using replication on other features, then it will be easy to understandable of what type of what database and where, and its concerned file is located in a single location, so that it will be better to manage it, and manageability will be better. uh, it's just a recommendation, and I think it will be better to manage all those things. Second thing that I wanted to put in the face, that latency and disk queue length. Whenever the things is happen, in some time we are facing that the database engine is slow, and people are trying to figure out what are the reason for that the latency is happen, low latency is happen. So in that context, it is recommended that if we are going to use the solid state disk SSD, and it will be better for performance context. And if we want to figure out what is the current situation, say most of the time maybe database is not working bad, but in some peak time it will not performing as it required. Say we need to monitor these things, disk performance. Actually, if the disk performance write latency, read write latency is less than or equal to 5 millisecond, then it will be good. But if it will cross the 10 or more than that, that will be bad for the database engine to performance management. So we have an built-in feature of SQL Server. That tools is called Performance. That will easily figure out the current read rate latency. And another thing I want to mention that here, that TameDB. In some context, we are using RAID and other feature for backup and uh, system manager, system properly handle and system proper backup management purpose. In that context, I would love to suggest that we need not to make TMDB in their redundant in a redundant disk, and need not to manage its data and log file in a single disk, and it will be better if they located their TMDB's data and log file in different disk location. Then it will be better. In that context, the thing which will happen, that the disk IO performance will be better. So it will hopefully, if we are following these things, then it will be better for uh, database engines read write performance enhancement. Now I want to say the SQL Server and SQL Server Agent Service. SQL Server is specific after the first and second subsequent failure. SQL Server Agent is property page. You can ensure that SQL Server Service or SQL Server Agent Service will restart automatically if they stop. In some context, we are not going to set this feature that after the failure, SQL Server is not uh, SQL Server is not restart automatically. We need to keep this feature on restart automatically. Then it will be better. If any context, say power failure, if or any other reason, if the SQL Server database engine is shut down, when the computer we are going to on the computer, then if this feature is on, then it will be then the database will be executable without any human interaction. And also there is an option that in many contexts we are using the SQL Server Agent Service. Basically, if we have many type of schedule job, in that context we are using SQL Server Agent Service. So in some context, I have found in my previous working time that SQL Server, we are not managing the uh, proper thing. What will happen if SQL Server Agent Service is failed? So we need to focus on that. If SQL Server Agent Service is failure, then if SQL Server Agent Service is not working properly, then all the scheduled job will be failed. So we have to take a specific action after the first and second subsequent failure. SQL Server Agent property page, you can ensure that SQL Server Service or SQL Server Agent Service will restart automatically if they stop unexpectedly. SQL Server Port. Actually, in the security context, it is a very important thing that by default SQL Server is working on 1433 port. But if we want to keep our system secure, then we need to change the default port from 1443 to another. Actually, as the 1433 port is very much familiar, and in some context, if the database is in the net, or if the database is accessible from other corner, then maybe in some context it will be a vulnerable situation may happen. SQL Server Automatic, actually SQL Server maintenance plan, SQL Server replication, or any other SQL Server agent job, it is recommended to change the start mobile mode of SQL Server agent and SQL Server integration service to automatic. So on each is server restart or service will start automatically. You can configure that start property of this service from the SQL Server configuration manager. uh, Nagib, have you seen that this SQL Server automatic feature is not on in some context? Have you seen in any?
Still now I don't yet, but I think this should be very much focusing area. So from the next time, I will ask anyone actually. If I will ask someone that though who are actually using SQL server based on their on premises and facing these types of issue.
Another interesting thing is that maybe you have seen that in some context people are complaining that their memory is full and SQL Server database engine is very slow. Have you faced this type of
Yeah, this is very common problem. Actually, those who are using SQL, I think so. This slide is very effective from for them maybe.
Actually, it is suggested that wherever we are going to allocate the maximum and minimum memory size, we actually in the time of initial configuration we are not bother on that, but it's a very much important thing. If we are not set the maximum memory that SQL Server database engine will going to occupy, then it will be problematic for the ways to work. Actually, ways has some requirement and ways have to have some reserved memory so that the ways can work properly. If the ways is not working properly, then database is not working properly. In the most cases, I have seen that in configuration window, people allocated by default all the memory that are available. In that context, the thing happens that
Okay.
the thing
So,
happens.
Ahsan bhai, one more question here.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Ahsan bhai, one more question here. So, is there any recommendation for the memory allocation for using SQL Server?
Right. Actually, Microsoft has recommended that at least 20% of total memory or 20 GB, which is lower, need to block for the operating system. You can see it in the first line. In this case, in the if the calculation is in the middle of the paragraph, that if you are using physical PC, say if you are using a PC that actually used for database engine or as a database server, in that context you need to keep 20 GB of memory, 20 GB of memory for the OS, and rest will be used for the SQL Server engine.
Mhm.
But if your system is working as a VMware, then you need to SQL max server memory plus thread stack and plus OS memory and VM overhead need to be uh, carefully handled. Actually, this is the calculation, and we hope that the in future who are not managing this mathematics will follow this. SQL Server file and file group. Actually, it is very much important that SQL Server file and file group actually need to manage in a fashion that it will work properly. Actually, if we want to get the proper IO, say every disk has a single IO. Most of the previous system where the cylindrical disks are used, in that context the thing or the problem is happen that disk IO is one, and if we are keeping all the file and file groups in a single disk, then it will be very much problematic to read and write, and it will create a read and write queue, and read and write latency become high. In that, then the thing user will face that database engine becomes slow. So we will be careful about that. If we have more disk, then it will be preferable to keep the different file in different disk. There is a
Okay.
there is an important feature of is in the configuration window that is called max drop, maximum degree of parallelism. It's a actually SQL Server. Actually, these things are very much ignored. I have seen. Have you seen it? Max drop feature. Actually, if we have
Yeah.
right have
Mhm.
say we have 8 core, and SQL Server actually think individual logical processor in a one numerical node physical processor. Every core is act as a physical processor, else that number. So it is recommended that if you are going to use RAID level 10, for that binary data and log file and TMDB for the best performance are available. So we are going to use RAID level 10, max worker thread. These things are also ignored whenever we are configuring the max worker thread, that how much worker thread will work together. Max worker thread of opinion or help us to optimize the performance when large number of clients are connected to a SQL server. Say we have a system that concurrently 10,000 or 5,000 concurrent user are uh, interact with the database. In this type of large system, we need to careful about the max worker thread. If hundreds of simultaneous connections are made to the SQL server, then one thread per query request would consume large amount of system resource. The max worker thread option help to improve the performance by enabling SQL to create a pool of work thread to service a large number of query requests. Actually, the thing is happen whenever a connection is created, and in a connection many type of requests are coming towards the database engine. So if the system is large and simultaneously or concurrently many user are requesting to get data, in that context we need to careful about the max worker thread. Is read committed snapshot enable? Actually, in the session of Deepthi, he has addressed some atomicity context. Actually, snapshot is a thing that we need to careful if we are if we are not want to face the deadlock situation. Nakib, can you please tell something about your experience on this read committed snapshot?
Hello, Ahsan, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Or
Yeah, I think my voice was breaking. So,
okay, maybe some network issue
so
happened.
just
So now
yeah,
it's okay. Actually, that thing
yeah.
I want to share that is read committed snapshot. And actually whenever any request come from a data table, data from a table, and the transaction will do some update or do some insert operation, in that context a deadlock situation may be happen. And to avoid the deadlock situation, eliminate the deadlock situation, the isolation level under which a transaction is statement execute determine its lock or and row version or behavior. Actually, that thing happened that if we say we are going to send a update SQL, and two simultaneous connection is wanted to do a update in a single table. In that situation, the deadlock may happen. To avoid the situation, we need to do that. Earlier the snapshot is the read committed snapshot enable feature was not present. In that context, we need to use the begin and commit transaction. And begin and commit transaction, between the begin and commit transaction is slower actually, but we need to enable the is read committed snapshot isolation. In that context, it will not block any rows, uh, other than it's use the mechanism of row versioning. So say I am going to update some data, and another connection is going to update some data. but it will not handle same record, but it will use the row versioning. Say I am going to update first, then the row version will 1, and if you are going to update that table same record, then the update version will be 2. So it will be better to avoid the deadlock situation. Nakib, do you want to say more on that?
Yeah, I think you already covered all things. This
Okay,
is
thank
actually
you.
things is with commit snapshot.
Okay, thank you. One more thing I wanted to address, that minimum memory per query. When a query is run, SQL try to allocate the optimum amount of memory for its run effectively. By default, the main memory per query setting is 1 KB, 1024 KB for each query to run. Best practice is to leave this setting at the default value 0 to allow SQL to dynamically manage the amount of memory allocated for the index creation operation and blah blah. Actually, the thing is minimum memory per query. If we are going to set minimum memory per query, then the memory will be allocated for that query only. Maybe if we are running a query that will not use that allocated memory, but it will be default allocated. The thing that the thing may happen that if we are using a system where the concurrently 1,000 people are connected, in that context, if we are going to allocate at least 1 MB memory for each user, each request, then it will need the memory, then the request will be in queued, and it will deteriorate the performance as well. So it will be better to allocate dynamically feature, then it will take the amount of memory the query is needed. So unnecessary memory block will not happen. Remote query timeout. Actually, remote query timeout is used to decide how long a remote query will take before SQL Server timeout. Actually, these things are happen if whenever the network situation is not fine. Say we have a system, we have a user, he is working from Gaibanda. If we have a user who is working from Rangpur, or if we have a user who is working from Khulna, in that context the network is not smooth, or earlier days this type of situation is happen, because until the query execution is complete, the time out will happen. Then people will face people means actually the end user will face unnecessary error timeout feature, and it will be very much problematic for a end user to understand what is mean by the timeout. So it will be better to keep the 0, so that the it will not disconnect until the query execution complete. Set the default index fill factor. The fill factor value is a percentage from 1 to 100, and the default is 0, the same as 100, which means that the leaf level pages are totally filled. Actually, whenever we are making or we are creating index, most of the cases the thing is happen, the leaf level and the node and the root node has depth maximum 100. If it is happened that it will grow more or the depth become high, then it will be problematic for the searching operation. So it will so whenever we are going to do that, we will do it set it and in an optimized level, so that performance will not be deteriorated. Hyperthreading. I think Nakib, you can say something about the hyperthreading.
Somebody, you can go ahead. No problem.
Okay.
I'm hearing here.
Hyper-threading is an hyper-threading is actually a hypervisor technology that exposed to hardware context from a single physical core. These threads are referred to as a logical CPU. It is common misconnection that hyper-threading double the number of CPU or core. This is simply not to the case. Hyper-threading improve the overall host throughput from 10 to 30% by keeping the processor pipeline busier and allowing the hypervisor more opportunity to schedule CPU clock cycle. Or so you should definitely take advantage of hyper-threading by enabling it in the BIOS of the VM host machine. Actually, if we keep the hyper-threading enable, want to keep the enable the hyper-threading, then it will be better to configure it in BIOS level actually. Max drop feature, maximum degree of parallelism. Max drop parallelism is a specific number of processor used in a parallel plan execution. Actually, whenever a query is running, that query will create a plan how the query will be executed. In I think in the November or September session, one of our speaker has detailed discussed about the query plan and how the query plan will be selected. And maybe for a simple a single SQL statement may have multiple query plan. So uh, whenever we are going to set how many core will be involved to execute the query, then it will be better actually. Say the thing is that we have 8 core. If full 8 core is involved to execute a single query, then the other query will take time or a queue will be generated for query execution. So if it is better if we allocate or configure the maximum number of logical core will be handle a query, then it will be reduce the query execution queue. So it will be a good feature. And recently I have worked in a large system where concurrently more than 5,000 user are working, and in that context I have seen that they complain about the database system's performance, and I have seen that the max drop setting is not properly configured. So after configuring that max drop feature, the radically the performance will be improved. Actually, in the most cases, the technical people work on to fine tune on the SQL queries, and they are going to select their first step is to make some index, and my experience says that we are creating index, but we are not using index, and we are going to figure out the which one is the SQL statement, which one